Daniel's boots echoed softly against the polished crystal floors of the alien palace. The halls were long, wide, and almost endless, glowing with silver light that came from runes carved into the walls. For him, every turn looked the same. Doors stretched down both sides, tall and carved with strange patterns, none of which he understood. The Sarathi Empire had opened its royal palace for the human delegation, but to Daniel, it felt like he had walked into a dream that was far too big for him. He was only a soldier. A simple man who had fought too many battles, who carried too many scars on his back and inside his heart. Now he was here because Earth had chosen him as part of the guard for the ambassadors. They said peace was possible, that after decades of bloodshed, humans and Sarathi might finally sit at the same table without reaching for weapons. But Daniel's eyes were heavy, his body tired. Hours of listening to nobles argue, to ambassadors trade sharp words, had drained him. He wanted only to rest, to shut his eyes and escape the weight of war. Yet the palace was a maze, and the directions given to him were already lost in his weary mind. He reached a tall silver door, shaped like a spearhead pointing upward. It looked no different than the dozens before it. He sighed. This must be it, he muttered to himself. Without thinking further, he pressed the panel and stepped inside. The air inside was different, softer, warmer. He froze. This was not his room. The chamber stretched wide, more like a sanctuary than a bedroom. Curtains of violet silk hung from the high ceiling, and glowing lights floated lazily in the air like stars caught in a jar. A large balcony opened to the galaxy outside, endless black scattered with diamonds of starlight. The beauty of it all struck him, and for a moment he simply stared, but then his gaze shifted and his heart nearly stopped. On the far wall, carefully framed and placed as if it were precious, was a picture. Not of the Sarathi royal family, not of a starship, not of a sacred symbol. It was of him. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He stepped closer without meaning to. The frame was simple, but the image was unmistakable. It was his old military photograph, one taken years ago on Earth when he was still fresh-faced, still unbroken by war. His hair was shorter, his smile forced yet hopeful. He remembered that day. The picture was for his soldier's ID. He had forgotten it long ago, and yet here it was, hanging on the wall of an alien princess's chamber. His mind spun. Why? He could feel his pulse in his ears. Fear crept in. If the Sarathi guards saw him here, standing in a royal's private quarters, staring at such a strange secret, it could mean disaster. Not only for him, but for the fragile peace Earth was trying to build. He turned quickly, ready to leave before anyone discovered him. But then he heard it, a voice soft and calm. You shouldn't be here. Daniel spun around. There, by the balcony, stood Princess Serenia. She was not dressed in royal armor or the ceremonial robes he had seen earlier during the council. Instead, she wore a simple flowing gown, her silver skin glowing faintly under the starlight. Her eyes, deep blue like the oceans he missed back on Earth, were fixed on him. Daniel's chest tightened. He had been caught. He opened his mouth, but the words tangled on his tongue. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. I thought this was my room. The princess did not look angry. She did not call for guards. Instead, her gaze shifted slowly to the wall, to the framed picture that Daniel had just seen. Her lips curved into the faintest, saddest smile. You saw it, didn't you? She asked quietly. Daniel's throat felt dry. He nodded once. He could not deny it. He had seen his own face on her wall, and at that moment, standing in the private chamber of the Sarathi princess, Daniel felt his entire world tilt into something he could not yet understand. Daniel stood frozen, his mind racing, his heart pounding so hard it felt like the sound might echo through the room. The princess had caught him in her private chamber. He expected anger, maybe even fear, but instead there was only calm in her voice and sadness in her eyes. He wanted to explain, to beg forgiveness for walking through the wrong door, but the words did not come. He felt small, like a soldier who had wandered into a place far too sacred for him. Princess Serenia moved closer, her steps light, graceful, almost floating. The glowing orbs of light shifted around her as though drawn to her presence. She carried no crown, no weapon, nothing that marked her as a royal besides the quiet authority in her gaze. You are not supposed to be here, she said again, but softer this time. There was no anger, only curiosity. Daniel swallowed hard. I swear, Princess, I didn't mean to intrude. I was only looking for my room. The palace is confusing. Her lips curved, not quite into a smile, more into an expression of understanding. Yes, it confuses even those who live here. The tension in his chest loosened slightly, but his eyes kept pulling back to the framed picture on the wall. His picture. He could not ignore it, no matter how hard he tried. And the princess noticed. She followed his gaze and then looked back at him. You are wondering why it is there, she said softly. Daniel hesitated. Admitting it felt dangerous, but lying to her seemed worse. Yes, I don't understand. Why would anyone here have my picture? Her expression grew distant, almost fragile. She walked toward the frame, her fingers brushing lightly against its edge. This image, she whispered. I kept it for many years. Hidden, where no one else could find it, until I could not hide it anymore. Daniel's breath caught. The strangeness of it all pressed against him. He was just a man. A soldier lost in a war that had nearly destroyed both their peoples. Why would a princess of the Sarathi Empire treasure his face? I don't understand, Daniel said, his voice rough. We've never met. I've never been here before. How could you have this? Princess Serenia turned her head slightly, her silver hair catching the starlight. Her deep blue eyes seemed to search through him, as though peeling back the layers of his soul. I saw you long ago, she said at last, not in person, but in the records. During the war, our intelligence gathered images of your kind, faces of those who fought against us. They showed me many soldiers, brutality, rage, fear. But then I saw you, Daniel blinked. Me? You were standing in the ruins of battle, she said quietly. Your armor was broken, your weapon lowered. And you smiled? He frowned, trying to remember. So many battles blurred together in his memory. A smile? Yes, she whispered. Not of victory, not of cruelty. A smile of hope. A smile that said, even in fire, even in loss, you still believed in something better. I never forgot it. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to deny it, to dismiss her words as fantasy. He wasn't special. He wasn't a hero. He was just a tired man who had survived when too many hadn't. Still, the way she spoke, it shook him. Because maybe, just maybe, she had seen something in him that he himself had forgotten long ago. Silence filled the room, heavy and strange. Daniel wanted to speak, to tell her she was mistaken, but before he could, Serenia's voice broke through again. My people taught me to see humans only as enemies, as destroyers. But when I saw your face, I questioned it. I kept this picture to remind myself that perhaps not all was darkness. Daniel's chest ached. He looked at her, an alien princess who should have hated him, and saw not hatred but a fragile kind of hope. For the first time since stepping into that palace, he felt something unexpected stir inside him. Not fear, not shame, but the faint spark of connection, dangerous and impossible, yet undeniable. Daniel stood still, his hands clenched at his sides. He could hear his own breathing, too loud in the silence of the princess's chamber. What she had said kept echoing in his head. She had seen him. She remembered his face. She had kept his picture for years. It was unbelievable. He wanted to argue, to tell her she was mistaken, that there was no reason for her to hold on to such a thing. Yet deep inside, a small voice whispered that maybe it was true. Princess Serenia did not look at him as she continued speaking. Instead, her eyes stayed on the picture. Her fingers traced the edge of the frame almost tenderly. This picture was taken from a battle report, she said softly. A long time ago, when I was still learning about your species. I had no right to keep it, but I did, because something about you would not let me forget. Daniel shifted uneasily. His throat was dry, and he felt a weight in his chest that he could not explain. But why? He asked, his voice low. Why me? I wasn't special. I was just another soldier. There were millions of us. She turned her gaze back to him then, her eyes shining like dark water. You don't understand. To us, humans were monsters. You came with fire, with steel, with ships that tore our worlds apart. Every image of you was meant to remind us of your cruelty. And yet, when I saw you in that report, you looked different. Daniel frowned. Different how? You were not laughing in blood, nor screaming in rage. You were standing still, wounded, tired, but you smiled. It was a small smile, but it reached your eyes. And in that moment I thought, Perhaps humans are not only destruction. Perhaps there is something else hidden in them. Daniel's chest tightened. He remembered fragments of that day now. The battle had been brutal, his squad torn apart. He had survived by luck more than skill. At the end, standing among wreckage, he had seen the sunrise breaking through the smoke. He had smiled, not because of victory, but because he was still alive, because there was still beauty even in ruin. He had not thought anyone noticed. He had not thought anyone cared. You built all this meaning from one small moment? He asked, almost whispering. The princess lowered her eyes. It may sound foolish, but when war is all you know, even a small spark of light becomes something you cling to. You gave me that spark. Daniel didn't know what to say. He felt both humbled and burdened. He was no hero. He had done terrible things in that war. He had fired on ships, on soldiers, on people who looked just like her. His hands were not clean. You don't know me, he said harshly, though the harshness was more toward himself than her. You see a picture, a smile, but you don't know what I've done. I killed your kind. I followed orders without thinking. His voice broke and he shut his eyes. For a long moment there was silence. Then Serenya's voice came, softer than ever. And I watched my brothers die. I watched my world burn. Do you think I do not know what war does? Do you think I cannot imagine what your hands have done? Daniel opened his eyes. Her gaze was steady, unwavering. I do not honor you because you were perfect, she continued. I honor you because in a world of war you still carried something human. Something that told me enemies are still people. That is why your picture is here. That is why I remembered you. Her words pierced through him deeper than any blade. For years he had buried his humanity under armor, under duty, under the weight of survival. But standing here in the room of someone who should have despised him, he felt something break open inside. He wasn't sure if it was shame, or relief, or both. The silence stretched again, heavy with unspoken truths. Daniel finally looked away, unable to hold her gaze. He did not feel worthy of her words, yet part of him wanted to believe them. And for the first time since the war ended, Daniel wondered if maybe he had been more than just another soldier. Maybe in some small way he had mattered. Daniel stood in silence, his fists clenched at his sides. The princess's words stirred something inside him, something he didn't want to face. She spoke of hope, of light, of meaning in a smile he had long forgotten. But he remembered the truth of war, and the truth was ugly. You don't understand, he said at last, his voice rough, almost breaking. I wasn't different. I wasn't special. I fought your people. I destroyed ships. I killed. The words tasted bitter on his tongue. He felt shame rising like a tide. He didn't want her to see him as something pure, something she could cling to. He didn't deserve that. Princess Serenya did not flinch. She did not step back or look away. Instead, her deep blue eyes grew even softer. And do you think I do not know death? I was born into it. I watched my brothers die in the flames of that war. I saw cities fall. Every night the cries of the wounded reached my window. You speak as if guilt belongs only to you. Daniel shook his head, his voice low. But I was part of the hand that brought that pain to you, to your people. How can you look at me without hate? For a moment her lips trembled as if she was fighting to control her own emotions. I did hate, she admitted quietly. For years I hated every human. I dreamed of your worlds burning as ours had burned. I prayed that the stars would punish you. But hate is a poison. It consumed me and still, it gave me nothing. Her hand brushed lightly against the frame of his picture. Then I saw you. And I asked myself, if even one soldier could carry something gentle in his eyes, perhaps not all of humanity was beyond forgiveness. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to believe her words, but a storm raged within him. He saw blood when he closed his eyes. He heard the screams of his comrades, the silence of those who never rose again. Could a single smile, a fleeting moment, erase all of that? No, he whispered to himself. I am not what you think I am. I'm just a man who survived. Nothing more. Serenya stepped closer. She was now only a few feet away, close enough that he could see the shimmer of starlight reflecting in her tears. Survival is not shame, she said firmly. Survival with humanity is rare. Do you think our soldiers did not kill? Do you think their hands were clean? War leaves no one untouched. And yet, you smiled. You reminded me that we could be more than war. Her words pressed into him like a weight. He felt as though she was reaching into the very core of his soul, dragging out the truth he had long buried. For so many years, Daniel had seen himself as nothing more than a weapon. A tool of his commanders, a man shaped by orders, by battlefields, by fire. He had locked away his softer parts, told himself they had no place in war. But here she was, seeing only that part of him, believing in it. The conflict inside him burned. Shame told him to turn away, to tell her she was wrong. Hope whispered that maybe she was right. That maybe, beneath the scars, there was still something left of him that was worth remembering. He looked at her, at the alien princess who should have despised him, yet instead stood before him with kindness. He could not understand it, but he could not deny it either. His voice came out broken, barely a whisper. Why me? Serenya's eyes glistened. Because even in the darkest night, one small light can be enough. And you were that light for me. Daniel's breath shuddered. He looked away, unable to hold her gaze. But inside, the storm began to shift just slightly. For the first time in years, he wondered if he had not lost all of himself in the war. Maybe, just maybe, there was still something human left. The air between them was heavy, filled with words unspoken. Daniel stood with his head lowered, his heart torn between shame and the strange comfort of her voice. Princess Serenya's presence calmed him in ways he could not explain. Yet her words had shaken him deeply. But before he could answer, a sound broke through the stillness. Footsteps, heavy, armored, approaching. Daniel froze. He recognized the rhythm instantly. It was the march of Sarathi royal guards. The sound grew louder, echoing through the crystal halls outside the chamber. His blood ran cold. If they found him here, standing in the princess's private room, everything would collapse. The fragile peace talks, Earth's hopes, even his own life, destroyed in a single misunderstanding. He turned sharply to Serenya, panic flashing across his face. They're coming. The princess did not move at first. Her gaze shifted to the door, then back to him. In that moment, Daniel saw not fear but decision. She stepped closer, her voice urgent but steady. You cannot be seen here. If they find you, they will call it an insult to me. Or worse, an act of spying. Do you understand what that would mean? Daniel did. It would mean chains. It would mean war again. His pulse quickened. Then I need to leave. Now. He glanced around the chamber, searching for another way out, but saw none. The footsteps were closer now, only seconds away. The massive doors shuddered as guards outside prepared to enter. Serenya acted quickly. She reached for his arm, her fingers cold yet trembling with urgency. This way, she whispered. With surprising strength, she pulled him toward a side wall draped with violet silk. Behind it, she pressed her hand against a panel. The wall shimmered and slid open, revealing a narrow corridor hidden in the shadows. Daniel hesitated. The corridor was dark, leading into the unknown. But the sound of armored hands touching the chamber door left him no choice. Go, she urged, her voice low but commanding. Trust me. Daniel looked at her one last time, searching her face for doubt. There was none. Only resolve. He slipped into the hidden passage just as the chamber doors opened. Through the narrow crack, he caught a glimpse of towering guards stepping inside, their spears glowing with pale blue light. He heard their voices, deep, sharp, suspicious. Princess, is everything well? We heard movement. Daniel held his breath, his body pressed against the cold wall of the hidden passage, every muscle tight. If they searched too carefully, if she faltered even once, it was over. But Serenya's voice floated through the crack, calm and composed. I am well. I was only... Reflecting in silence, the guards paused. Their footsteps moved further into the room. Forgive us, Highness. We will secure the area. Daniel's heart hammered. Would they notice the picture? Would they sense something strange? His fingers curled into fists, ready to fight his way out if he had to. But then Serenya's voice came again, firm yet gentle. Leave me. I need solitude tonight. No patrol inside my chambers. There was a pause, then the sound of armor shifting. The guards bowed and withdrew. The heavy doors closed once more, sealing with a low hum. Daniel exhaled shakily. A moment later, the silk curtain shifted, and Serenya appeared in the passage. She looked at him with eyes that held both worry and relief. You must be careful, she whispered. One wrong step in this palace, and everything you humans have worked for will be undone. Daniel nodded slowly, his breath still uneven. Why did you protect me? You could have exposed me. You should have. Her voice softened. Because the peace I want cannot be built on fear. And because... She hesitated, her hand brushing lightly against his arm. Because if I lost you now, the hope I have kept for years would vanish too. Her words sank deep into him. For a moment, Daniel forgot the danger, forgot the walls closing in around them. He saw only her, an alien princess who had risked everything to protect him, not because of politics, but because of something far more fragile, far more human. And in that hidden corridor, with the shadows of war still heavy above them, Daniel realized just how dangerous hope could be. The hidden passage was narrow and cold, the walls glowing faintly with silver veins of light. Daniel followed the princess through the corridor, his footsteps slow, his mind racing. He could still hear the echo of the guards outside, their suspicion, their voices. But what stayed with him more than anything was her choice, her decision to protect him when she could have easily let them take him. When they were far enough that the voices faded, Serenia stopped. She turned toward him, her face half lit by the faint glow of the walls. Her eyes searched his as if weighing something she had long carried. Daniel broke the silence first, his voice rough. "You shouldn't have done that. If they found me here in your chamber, it wouldn't just have been my life. They'd blame Earth. The peace talks would die. Everything would burn again." Serenia's expression softened, but her voice was firm. "I know the risk. I felt their suspicion. But I also knew I could not let them take you." "Not like that. Not without you knowing the truth," Daniel frowned. "The truth?" For a moment she hesitated, as though fighting with her own heart. Then she spoke, her words trembling yet strong. "All these years I have carried your image, not because of politics, not because of duty, but because it became my anchor. In the darkest nights, when I wanted to drown in hatred, I looked at your face. You reminded me that the enemy could still be human, still be alive, still be more than just destruction." Daniel's chest tightened painfully. He shook his head, almost angry with her words. "No, don't put me on some pedestal. I'm not the man you think I am. I fought, I killed. My hands are stained like every other soldier's. I don't deserve to be anyone's anchor." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "And do you think mine are clean? Do you think I did not command, did not watch Sarathi ships rain fire upon your kind? Blood clings to me as well, Daniel. That is why your smile meant so much. It told me that even in blood humanity can still live." His breath shook. He wanted to argue, to tell her that she was wrong, but the way she looked at him, so earnest, so vulnerable, broke through his walls. "You kept my picture all these years," he whispered. "Why? Why hold on to something that could destroy you if anyone else saw it?" She stepped closer, her voice almost a whisper. "Because it wasn't just a picture anymore. It was hope. And maybe—" She hesitated, then looked directly into his eyes. "Maybe it was something more." Daniel's heart thudded heavily. He understood the meaning hidden in her words, though she did not speak them aloud. An alien princess, bound by duty, confessing feelings for a human soldier who had once been her enemy. It was impossible. It was dangerous, and yet he felt it too. For years he had buried every soft part of himself, locked them away behind armor and silence. But standing before her now in this hidden corridor, those walls cracked. He saw her not as an alien royal, not as the daughter of an emperor, but as someone who had suffered like he had, who had carried pain and still chosen to believe in light. Slowly, he whispered, "I don't deserve you remembering me. I don't deserve any of this." Serenia lifted her hand and touched his arm gently. Her voice trembled, but her words were steady. "It is not about deserving, Daniel. It is about truth. And the truth is, I remembered you because you made me believe peace was possible. You made me believe humanity was more than just war." For a long moment, silence wrapped around them. He felt her touch on his arm like fire, fragile yet grounding. He wanted to pull away, but instead he found himself stepping closer. For the first time in years, Daniel allowed himself to feel, not as a soldier, not as a survivor, but as a man who longed for connection. And as their eyes held, both of them understood. This was more than chance. This was the beginning of something fragile, dangerous and powerful, a bond that could change everything. The day of the Peace Council arrived like a storm. The great Sarathi hall was filled with voices, human generals on one side, Sarathi nobles on the other. Suspicion poisoned the air, sharp and heavy. Soldiers stood with hands near their weapons. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Daniel sat quietly among the human delegation, his jaw tight, his mind restless. He had not slept well. Serenia's words, her touch, her confession, they had followed him through the night like a haunting melody. He should have forgotten it, buried it, but he couldn't. For the first time since the war, something inside him refused to let go of hope. When Serenia entered, the room shifted. She wore her ceremonial robes, heavy with silver and blue, her crown glimmering in the light. Her face was calm, but Daniel could see the weight behind her eyes. She walked with dignity, yet he knew the courage it took for her to stand here. The Emperor, her father, spoke first, his voice like iron. The Sarathi have long memories. We do not forget the fires humans unleashed upon our worlds. Today you ask for peace, but tell me, why should we trust those who nearly destroyed us? The human commander rose, his voice stern but steady. Because war has taken enough. Because if we continue, there will be nothing left to rule on either side. The arguments began. Accusations flew like arrows. Both sides spoke of betrayal, of lost lives, of broken promises. The hall grew hotter with every word, and Daniel felt his stomach twist. He had seen too many meetings like this, meetings that ended with shouting, with weapons, with blood. And then Serenia stood, her voice cut through the noise like a clear bell. Enough. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to her. Even her father's brows lifted slightly. She looked around, her gaze passing over nobles, generals, and finally landing on Daniel. For a moment she held his eyes, and he knew she was about to risk everything. I have lived with hatred in my heart, she said softly, though her voice carried. I was a child when your warships burned our skies. I swore vengeance. I swore to never forgive, but even in my darkest hours I found something I could not ignore. Her words trembled, but she continued. I found proof that not all humans were monsters, that not all Sarathi were saints. That war is not made by blood, it is made by choices, and now we stand at the edge of another choice. Whispers spread through the hall. The Emperor's eyes narrowed, but Serenia did not stop. I kept something secret for years, she said, her hands clasped tightly. A photograph. A human soldier's face. A man who once spared me when he had every reason not to. That picture reminded me that mercy exists, that compassion can outlive hate. Gasps filled the room. Daniel's breath caught as every gaze turned toward him. His chest ached, but he did not look away from her. She raised her chin, proud and unafraid. That man is here today. His name is Daniel, and I will not hide it anymore. His image saved me. His humanity gave me hope. If one soldier's mercy could do this, imagine what peace could do for us all. For a heartbeat, the hall was frozen. Daniel felt exposed, every scar of his soul laid bare before two civilizations. But then something shifted. The silence broke not with anger, but with murmurs of uncertainty, then cautious agreement. Even some Sarathi nobles bowed their heads. On the human side, the generals glanced at Daniel with something like respect, something they had not shown in years. The Emperor looked long at his daughter, then at Daniel. His expression was unreadable, but at last he spoke. Perhaps it is time we choose differently. The hall erupted, not in violence, but in discussion. Hope, fragile and trembling, began to take root. As the council continued, Daniel sat in stunned silence. His hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what just happened. Serenia had risked everything, her name, her honor, even her safety, for the truth of a single moment they had once shared. When the council adjourned, when treaties were finally written and the hall slowly emptied, Daniel found himself standing alone in the quiet. Serenia approached, her robes trailing softly on the floor. She stopped before him, her voice gentle. I told them because I needed them to see what I saw. You, the human who was different. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to say so much, but only one sentence came out. You changed everything today. She smiled faintly, though her eyes shone with unshed tears. No, Daniel. We changed everything. In that moment, surrounded by the ghosts of war and the fragile beginnings of peace, Daniel realized something. The picture on her wall had not only been her anchor, it had been his too. Proof that in a universe of hatred, a bond between two souls could still matter. And sometimes that was enough to save the world.